Yo, welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement and the community that we serve. It's your boy AJ, the one and only. Oh no, it's the Popo. And as always, I'm joined by the one and only, the light-skinned persuasion, Mr. Ryan.
Hey, there it is.
And that's my first intro. Let's go.
Hey, okay. I like it. He trying to take my job, y'all. Job security. He trying to take my job.
I was practicing all week. All week I was practicing that.
Some of y'all was like, did I turn on the wrong podcast? I know this ain't It's Needed.
They finished the intro. It was like, yo, it's a click. Nope. I don't know who that is. I don't know that. What's up with you, Ryan?
Man, I'm chilling, baby. I'm chilling. It's Sunday before Easter. Kicking it, man. Always excited to get on this podcast. And so, and just so our listeners know, we're gonna have a special guest today. She still will be on, and I will post her on our social media account. But we're having some technical difficulties, but we're gonna reschedule with her. It's good. I'm excited to talk, man. I don't think we've done a podcast with just you and I in a while, bro.
It has been a while. It's been a while, so we are way overdue.
Yes, man, because we had Saint on last week, and Saint was, man, did you see his interview for today? Good Day.
He killed it. They did a good job at that.
Yes, they did. So,
hey, Saint got some heat though, man.
Bro, Saint's gonna get a deal, bro. I think Saint's gonna get a deal. Saint's gonna get a deal, and he actually called me the other day. I gotta call him back. That dude's gonna get a deal for sure. He was on Good Day Today, and then he said he got hit up. He texted me and told me he got hit up by. Did I tell you this? He got hit up by CNN.
I believe it. No, he didn't tell me that.
Yeah, CNN hit him up too. He's gonna be doing something for CNN as well.
Look at that. Yeah, I'm about to be blowing him up, asking for all sorts of money. Hey, can you just buy me a car? Like, come on.
Bro, he is on. He is on right now. I'm like, man, dog. Hey, just hook your boy up. See, right now is right when we need to really get to know him before he blow up. I'm like, so you just gonna play us like that? So you gonna act like you don't know us?
Saying if you're listening, you're probably not, because we already busted you when you was on here. But if you are, don't forget about your boys.
So Saint's doing some phenomenal work. And actually, there's another guy that reached out to me. Really, really good, solid dude. He reached out to me through Saint. And so the reason he reached out to me is because him and Saint, I think they know each other. They work together in Baltimore PD. Do you remember the video where that police officer is on that? His name is Gregory. Do you remember that video where the police officer is on that foot pursuit? And he chases this dude a ways, bro. He is a traffic stop or whatever, a traffic collision. The officer's running super far, and he ends up tackling this dude. It went viral. The video went viral. It's the helicopter captures the footage.
Oh, on the freeway?
Yeah, and he runs, the officer runs a ways and then tackles him, and they're like, this is the importance of physical fitness. Yeah, so Greg actually reached out to me. Greg is him and Saint know each other, but Greg said when that video went out, bro, that video went viral, and so he got hit up by GoPro. So now he's sponsored by GoPro. Yeah, what? Right. Seriously, and then I think it was Fox. Well, actually, I don't even know I'm supposed to be giving names right now. There was a network.
Edit that out, Billy.
Yeah, there's a network. No, keep it because that's for the comedy. But there's a network that actually reached out to him and wants to put it. They're putting him on a show. So he's actually been in California for 2 weeks filming this show in Burbank. Yeah, yeah, bro. He was like, it's crazy how much people hit him up after that video. So, but Greg's a good dude. I think I told Greg we'll have him on the podcast one of these days to actually show again what the good work that law enforcement is doing.
I was gonna say, that's one of the coolest things about this podcast and the work that we're doing is we're able to spotlight so many police officers who are doing amazing things in their own unique way.
Oh, 100%.
You got a sponsor from GoPro. Come on, man.
I'm still waiting on my sponsor, bro. I mean, what's up?
I need a sponsor from Lamborghini.
Oh, I need
a realtor. A realtor. That's what I need a sponsor from.
I need a sponsor for Aston Martin. Go ahead and give me a sponsor from Aston Martin. I'll show you how to drive a police car right.
Vacation homes, all of that.
And then before that, we had my man Jorge, which was to this day, no knock on any of our other special guests, but man, that podcast episode was just fire. I mean, Jorge brought down the house, his story, being a former gang member and turning his whole life around and speaking. Jorge's doing some amazing things. Jorge's actually going to be speaking at our It's Needed conference in August, man. So, man, we've had some great guests on, man. I think that's how I know this podcast has been nothing but a blessing, is because we have not only has it been a success and been downloaded in over 11 countries, but the people that we have on this podcast have been phenomenal. My man Sean Larkin Sticks, Ashley Hawkins.
Ashley.
It's just been my boy Tam, and then the special guest we were gonna have today, Ernestine. Oh man, she's like,
oh, she got some heat. She has some heat. Just wait, y'all. You listen. We got a sneak peek. She bring it down the house.
Oh my, she is killing it. I firmly believe that Ernestine and her husband will probably be in the $1 billion club as far as making money within the next 10 years. The way they're off for running to, they're going to be in the $1 billion club. So, and Ernestine, she's not a police officer. Ernestine is actually she's a civilian, and but Ernestine and I went to college at UNLV together, and so she's known me before I became a police officer, and so she's doing some phenomenal things. So great things, man. But again, it always feels good to just get back on the podcast with my boy AJ and just kind of catch up as boys, because I think if you guys haven't noticed, when me and AJ get on, it's like me and him are just having a regular conversation.
Chopping it up. Just chopping it up. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So
yeah, we have some good guests, man. I mean, you said it, man. Jorge brought down the house. And no disrespect, or not to take away from like any of the other guests, but I mean, I listened to that podcast probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Just to hear his message and to be inspired. And that goes, like, if you're listening to this, that goes to show, like, one, it's never too late, and two, there's nothing you can't go through and learn from.
Exactly.
It's just not.
Exactly. So, man, what's going on in the latest news, AJ? What would you say? What are some current events, man, out there that we should discuss with our listeners and viewers?
The current event is there are tornado watches here in Central Ohio. So if y'all hear a siren and this disconnects, I need y'all to send a search party, because I can't be one of those guys that's like trapped under like rubbish and like wreckage for days, because I get hungry and I got to eat. So,
bro, that's how y'all know y'all have issues, bro. Like, if it ain't snowing, y'all got tornadoes. If it ain't a tornado, it's snow. Y'all need to just go ahead and move west, bro.
Yeah, but out Cali, you got to worry about earthquakes and more earthquakes.
No, we fine with the ground shaking, bro. Ground shaking ain't never hurt nobody.
You know, it's funny. I was telling my homeboy the other day, I'm like, I was talking to my buddy Ryan. He asked me like it was like a common knowledge question. Like, well, what would you do during an earthquake? I don't know, run. And my buddy I was telling is from Columbus too, and he had no idea either. He was like, I would just go outside. And I was like, that's what I would do. And he just laughed. And I was like, man, I don't know, man. I'm in California. The ground don't shake here. If the ground shakes in Ohio, it went bad.
Hey, when the ground shakes in Ohio, bro, it's going to be a bad day.
Yeah. Everybody, the whole country having a bad day at that point.
Oh, man. So there's a lot of current events trending. Obviously, the Nipsey Hussle loss. You know, that's a current event. I mean, what's your thoughts? What's your take on Nipsey, man?
I was a Nipsey fan prior to him passing away. Like, he was on my playlist, grinding on my life, right hand. Like, I rock with Nipsey. I stand behind his message, of like encouragement and like empowering the oppressed and whatnot. But I had police officers who were like pointing out that he was affiliate, or that he was a gangbanger, and that he sold drugs, and that he did this and he did that. And then in the same timeline, I had community members who were blaming LAPD, like, well, LAPD assassinated him, or LAPD said this or did this to his mom. It's just like both of y'all are missing a point. Like, what funeral have you ever gone to and someone has had the microphone and said something crazy like, Bill was a really nice guy, but he was a gang member and he did this and he did that? Like, that never happened. So why are you doing this now because he's a public figure? Like, can we just recognize the good that he was doing in the community, take that part that we like that he was doing and give it wings, right? Like let it breathe and let it walk and let it talk in his name. But I don't know, man. It's just so frustrating, because like that just shows you like where people's minds are 24/7. Like, it always has to be like, well, I'm blaming somebody else or us versus them instead of like, hey, like let's lay this man to rest in peace and like let his legacy continue on.
And I think the biggest thing too, to piggyback on what you're saying, is I think people forget that we all sinners. Like people, people. It's funny, we will hold other people to a pedestal, but yet when you look at your own personal life, it's nowhere near it. So how can we sit here and cast judgment on others, but then if you look in your closet, your closet probably ain't the cleanest neither. And
all the skeletons,
and we have this is not just a police officer thing. This is a societal thing. Like, members of the community do it and members of police officers do it. Like, we just forget. We all of a sudden start to think that we're perfect, and we start to cast judgment on the other person. Yeah. Forgetting that, you know what? Shoot, I'm kind of bad in my own ways. And I think the other thing too is we like to do a lot of comparison.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
We like to compare wrong. Oh yeah. We like to compare wrongs. Like, my wrong isn't as bad as his wrong.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a battle of how bad the wrong is. And when wrong is wrong, no matter how you look at it, you know what I mean? And so, to talk about Nipsey, I mean, what he was doing in the community, I thought was phenomenal. And the reason I thought what he was doing in the community was phenomenal was because he was doing something that was not common for where he was at in society, where he was at his community. The dude, he grew up. He was a gang member, and typically, if we talk about gangs fund themselves through drugs, guns, sex, violence, human trafficking. That's what gangs do in general. What Nipsey was doing was actually buying property, putting people from his own community to work in the properties that he was buying. He had a barber shop, he had a clothing store, doing it the right ways. And what's funny is as police officers, I've heard other police officers say this when we talk about criminals, is imagine if they just use their mind to do the right thing. Well, he was actually somebody that was actually using his mind to do the right thing. Now, despite his past, he actually was doing things to do the right thing. And I know the day after, he had a meeting scheduled with the chief of police of LA and a few other members, because that was his next thing. He wanted to work on that, that divide between the community and law enforcement in LA. And so, it's our goal, it's mine and AJ's goal to carry that torch, obviously, to continue to bridge that gap. But I mean, don't criticize and don't crucify somebody that's trying to do the right thing. And it's funny because that reminds me of us.
Yep.
And what I mean is, we've been, there's a lot of people that say, oh man, police, get it bad from the community, or you'll have the community members saying we can't stand the police. And you have two guys that have stepped up and try to repair that gap. And how many people have talked about us for doing it? You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness. I can't keep track. And those are the ones we know about, right?
Exactly.
Like, the ones who are doing it behind our back, which is a majority of them, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I guess my thing with it is you have to see like the human, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and to tie that back into what we're doing, right? Like we want you as our listeners to see us as human beings, not as Officer AJ or Officer Tillman, which can help you therefore break down those barriers so we can help build this trust up, right? So if we can't do that as law enforcement officers to these community members, how can we expect them to do the same with us? And like, that's my biggest frustration. And like, people were sending me, so this is the cool part about like social media, is I have a pretty large following of community members, right? Mm-hmm. Like non-law enforcement, and they hold me and other officers accountable. So when this happened, I had people blowing up my DM, sending me messages from other police officers in California, like, hey, AJ, you got to speak on this, or you got to put this officer in check. Or they're commenting underneath of his post, right? Like, oh no, it's the po-po. Like, what you got to say about this? Get your boy in check. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, you making us work so much harder. Like, you got to hold yourself to a higher standard. Like, you're supposed to be professional when it comes to stuff like this, but here you are casting a stone. Like, what you look like, man? Come on.
Exactly. And it's funny, when we created Breaking Barriers United, that was my goal. Is I wanted to be a voice for people when something crazy happened in the community. And And so it's funny now that I'm getting those same messages, man. I got one the other day from somebody that sent something out. There was like, I guess it looked like a riot at a school or something like that. And these cops were just caught in the middle of it. And it was crazy. And the guy was like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? And I broke it down to him. And you know what's crazy is like, he sent me a message back and he was like, man, I respect what you and Oh No It's a Popo is doing. I appreciate your opinion. I never would have looked at it from that outlook. And so that's the value of what it is that we're doing, man. And I want, other people out there when in regards to Nipsey or whoever else, you know what I mean? Look at it from that side. I always tell people, because we get angry as a people. It's part of life. Something happens, something doesn't go your way, we get angry. But this is one of the things I always tell people, and it's kind of almost like it's almost like when we talk about the laws and we're trying to figure out if somebody violated a certain law. The same principle actually applies to life. Is what was the intent? What was the intent of your heart? What was the intent of the person's heart? Like, was it my intent to go out and start Breaking Barriers United, to make a whole bunch of money, to live on top of the hill, and to drive an Aston Martin? No, that's not my intent. My intent is to repair the bond between law enforcement and the community. Are there byproducts where other resources can make themselves to avail? Yeah, of course, that's a byproduct, and it's like that with anything else. So when you look at Nipsey, when you look at other police officers that are actually dancing in their communities or doing races in their community, look at the intent of what they're doing. Don't look at the actual action of what they're doing. Look at the intent of the action. Because if you get to the intent of the action, then that's going to give you a little bit more knowledge as to where their heart was at. And that's my biggest frustration, is people just look at the actions. I was telling this lady, so it's funny, I did that dance video obviously like about 2 months ago now, and I was at the golf course. I took my son and my wife. We went to the driving range yesterday, just teaching them how to golf. And so we went into the clubhouse to go get some food or something like that. And as I'm asking a lady for a drink, she was like, "Are you a police officer?" And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's either a good thing or a bad thing. Like, who's asking? Like, why? And she was like, "You look familiar." She was like, "Are you that police officer that was dancing?"
Nice.
And I was like, yeah, I was like, that would be me. She was like, "I knew it was you. Like, you walked in here the first time and, I knew that was you." And I was like, "Yeah, that was me." She was like, "You're like a celebrity." I was like, "No, I'm not a celebrity, but yeah, that was." And so, but the funniest part about that whole thing is I told her, I was like, "You know what? That was just me being me. I didn't do that because somebody told me to do it. I didn't do that because I was trying to make a video go viral. That guy you saw in that video is the same guy that's buying this chips for my 2 kids right here." And, and that's what I think I want people to see when they look at any type of video. So for all those haters out there, the cop haters that are like, "Oh man, here goes another police officer dancing," or the civilian haters that are like, "Oh man, there just goes another pig in a uniform," or "There's no better cop than a dead cop." Man, look at a person's intention. Just look at what their intention is. And then if we can start looking at the intentions, then you can start to see what their heart says about them as an individual.
You know what's so funny about what you said, and I wish my wife was here right now to like stand up for me when I make this comment. I say it all the time. When someone does something, I always evaluate that action or those actions off of 2 things. The first thing is their intent. All right, what was your intent? Like, even if what you did hurt me, was it your intent to hurt me or was it your intent to do something else, right? And then the second thing that I always judge their actions or action off of is your history, right? Like, do you have a history of hurting me or of doing whatever? And those 2 things right there tell me immediately like what type of person you are or how I should react to that action or those actions. And that's exactly it. That is exactly it, man. Like, I can't tell you how many times on social media I'll post a video and someone will go, actually, the last video I posted, or maybe 2 videos ago, this rapper, shout out to Montana of 300. I had no idea who this guy was. I'm talking to a kid on my precinct, and the kid out of nowhere goes, "I don't drink or smoke because my favorite rapper doesn't."
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Dude, I was like blown away. I was just like, whoa, hold on. Because I work in the inner city, right? Where like those things are glorified. So I'm like, hold on, let me put my phone out. Like, the world has to hear this. So I'm like, "Can you say that one more time?" He says it, and I go, "Who's your favorite rapper?" He goes, "Montana of 300. And on the video, I go, "Look, I don't know who you are, man, but like what I do know is that you are encouraging the youth in a positive way. So I hop on his page after I post a video. I check his page out. Now he's a rapper, and he's rapping about like, you know, his AK-47, and he's dancing around the living room with his AK-47 and whatnot. But in the same breath, like, he's very vocal, like, hey, I will never drink and I will never smoke because both of my parents suffered from substance abuse.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know what? I applaud that. So I posted the video and people blew me up. They're like, man, how you gonna post this and glorify like Montana of 300? And he got songs where he's like dancing with AK-47s, and he's got like all these like chicks in the videos, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're missing the point. You are missing the point. Like, did you not just hear what this kid said?
Man.
Like you're missing the intent of this video. And then once you figure out the intent from this video, I want you to look back 300 videos to go and check the track record, right? Like, I'm not doing this to glorify some rapper or to get likes or followers, none of that. Like put those two together and then holler at me. But it was funny because somebody commented on one of the videos and just completely hated on me. Like, well, I refuse to like this video or applaud you until you actually do something that makes a change. I don't got time for those comments. Or I'll delete it. If it's like whatever, I'll just leave it. But I'm like, you know what? Like, I got time today. I just drank some coffee.
I got time. So I got time.
I had time today. So it was funny because community members were stepping up for me as well. And they were like, clearly you don't know who he is. Like, you need to do your research before you make these comments. And what I hit him with was this. I go, hey, look, I can't control every police officer out there. I can't control every police officer in my department. Right? 2,000 of us. I can't control every single one of the police officers, but what I can control are my actions and what I do and what my intent is and what my history is, right? Like, I can control those things. And my community respects me and encourages me to do more because they refuse to judge me based off of what they see on TV and what they hear on the radio because they're too busy seeing what I'm doing in real life. And the dude ain't even reply. He ain't even reply.
And they usually don't, because I call them trolls. Like, I've had people come on our page multiple times and say something crazy, and like you, I don't usually entertain them, but every now and then I got some time to entertain some of these haters, and I'll say something, and then they never respond back, and I always leave them with God bless.
Every time.
Anytime, hit them with the God bless. Maybe it's the God bless that makes them not respond because they're like, shoot, man.
I always hit them with the stay blessed.
Yeah, exactly.
It was even crazier. So I had to do that. So that same week, I had to send a police officer a similar message because he hit me up like, you need to stop dancing. You're making all of us look like clowns. Oh, he called me, he called me numbnuts. He said, hey, numbnuts, and then just like went in on me. And I'm cracking up. I'm like, oh, this dude tripping.
Man.
So I sent a private message. I said, hey, just so you know, I'm in our honor guard. I'm in our officer support team. I'm in our peer assistance team. I raise money for fallen officers' families. I go to D.C. every year for Police Week and honor fallen police officers. I host a podcast where we call out bad cops, like all of this stuff, right? And I said, just so you know, all of that, do your research before you cast those stones. And then I ended it with God bless. And he just put stay safe out there. It's just like, come on, man. Like,
exactly.
Miss me with all that, man. Like, miss me with all that. Like, stop judging me like in a negative manner based off of like your preconceived notions.
You know, it's funny, man. And this stuff that we're talking about, it seems like common sense, man, but common sense ain't so common. You know, and I just wish, man, like, and one day, man, I'm optimistic to think that we're going to be able to help people. That kind of, you know, this week, so working at the school, I deal with, as a school resource officer, my job is obviously is to enforce criminal laws that occur on campus, but I'm also, again, a resource officer. And what that includes is me being a resource to the staff, but also a mentor to the students. And so I had a student last week that came to my office and he was feeling suicidal. And so he told me, he was like, hey, Officer Tillman, man, like July 1st is the day I plan on killing myself. And I'm like, what? Like July 1st? Like, bro, like that's not even, like, it's not just a thought in your mind. Like, you actually got a date.
Have a date.
And
yes,
so, man, we talked, we hugged it out, man. He was crying. And at the end of the day, man, he felt like, he was like, man, Officer Tillman, like, it's because of you that makes me feel way better. And so what stood out to me was the fact that, man, our kids are dealing with stuff that we never experienced before. And, you know, there's some frightening statistics that I looked up the other day. And, So I didn't know if you know this, but and this would be actually a good lead into Officer Down, but the second leading cause of death for children, or I don't want to say children, but for people ages 10 to 24 is suicide. In 2018, wow. There were more police officers that died from suicide than actually in the line of duty. And then research shows that there are 20 veterans that die per day from suicide. Per day. And so I'm thinking and I'm looking at these numbers and I'm like, man, like we have a far bigger problem than what we are making issues of in the media. Like these issues that we're talking about in the media between officers and the community are nothing compared to the underlying issues like depression, mental health, suicide. Like these are real issues that need to be talked and spoken about, and we're missing the point. So when you go onto a person's page and you're criticizing an officer for dancing in a school, that means you're missing the point. When you're a community member and you're out there giving this officer a hard time who's actually trying to keep the bad guy from going into your home and stealing stuff, you're missing the point. Because the point is that we're dealing with issues far greater than we ever have in our nation's history. And we need to be focusing our energy and efforts on preventing those things as opposed to casting stones to the ones that are actually trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. So my question that I'll raise to my brother on this podcast is...
Let's go.
We see an issue.
What are we going to do to fix it?
What are we going to do about this?
So I'm glad you might ask, my other light-skinned brother from another mother. So we will actually be launching a suicide awareness / prevention campaign. It is coming. Yeah. This campaign is going to be legit. And I want all of our listeners and viewers to know, and you guys will know when we launch it because we're going to make it known. But I want this thing, I want this thing to go viral, like almost like the ALS challenge went viral. And the whole goal is I want people out there to recognize that they're needed. You like that? How it's needed? I want people to recognize that they're needed. And so we are going to flood the social media waves. The same social media sites and pages that are making people depressed is going to be the same social media waves that we're going to flood positivity and let them know that we care about them, that we love them. And so, yes, like you said, AJ, for every problem, there's a solution. And so we're going to get in the business of the solution game and figure out what's the solution to this.
That's exactly it. And I also want to challenge every single one of our listeners. Like when you come across an issue in your life, I don't want you to dwell on the issue. I want you to dwell on the solution. And then I want you to implement that solution on a worldwide basis. I mean, that's what we need more of. We live in a very broken world. It's no secret. So we need broken people to come together to start healing. So let's get it.
Let's go, man. So speaking of that, man, what is the Officer Down memorial at this week?
So our last podcast, which was 2 weeks ago, we came in at 29. As of today, we're at 32. So let's just take a moment to honor those three heroes who lost their lives in the line of duty.
Man, it's happening more and more, man. One of those officers was actually a local officer from here. He's actually a California Highway Patrol officer that actually lost his life on the freeway last week. And so terrible stuff, man. And it's so real, man. It can happen to any single one of us. And so my heart goes out to the families of those officers that just recently lost their life in the line of duty. Switching gears, man, I don't know if you saw, did you hear Magic Johnson step down, man?
Oh yeah,
dog, that was heartbreaking to me, bro. That was heartbreaking to your boy.
You was talking all that stuff when LeBron came over, but they not looking too good.
Hey, bro. Until next year, bro. I was first thing I said was like, dang, LeBron got so much weight. That fool just made my man Magic quit.
Hey, Magic was like, you know what? I'm out. The crazy part is they did better than the last year. Well, 2 years ago.
I know, bro.
That's the crazy part about it.
Don't even get me started, dog. I'm hurting a little bit. I'm hurting.
Yeah, you can talk about the Cavaliers, but you know what? I ain't gonna bring up.
Hey, well, I ain't heard no news about the Cavaliers, so we still better in that aspect.
What about them Browns, though?
Man, ain't nobody talking about the Browns. Ain't nobody talking about the Browns, dog.
Hey. Odell coming. Hey, what?
Hey, nobody. Any team that got a name like the Browns shouldn't even be that good.
I mean, I'm a secondary Browns fan. I'm a Cowboys fan just because I grew up that way. But you got to rep the Browns if you're from Ohio. So like,
Oh
we're
man,
excited.
that's terrible. That's terrible. So let's switch gears, man. Let's move into our topic. One thing I wanted to talk about today was I want to talk about consensual encounters versus detentions, and we haven't done a topical discussion in a while. I know when we started the podcast, we would do topics like traffic stops or use of force, the academy. We haven't done one in a while, and that's fine. But I want to kind of go back. And I want to talk about some of the reasons why we do certain things and for our listeners. And so a consensual encounter, and the reason why we do consensual encounters, and I think I've discussed this before, is the purpose of a consensual encounter is, one, to get to know the people in your community. It's also to, talk to people and find out what's going on. You got to have an ear to the streets. A lot of times people don't realize what's a consensual encounter. It sucks sometimes because, when you just randomly walk up to somebody and talk to them, they automatically may feel like you're either racially profiling them or, just trying to find a reason to stop them. There's so many people in my city, man, that I honestly just walk up and talk to them just because I genuinely want to go talk to them and see how they're doing and what's up. But a consensual encounter basically is something that, an officer has no reason to stop you whatsoever. They're literally just coming up to talk to you, say what's up, and the person that's on the receiving end of it has every right to just continue to keep it pushing if they wanted to. They do not have to stop. They don't have to talk to the officer. They can just keep walking. And so that's a consensual encounter. A detention is where an officer has some type of reasonable grounds to stop you. A traffic stop, a violation of a municipal code violation, whatever it may be. If an officer observes some type of violation, he can stop you for that. And so... AJ, do me a favor and kind of let our listeners and viewers know the purpose of why we may do consensual encounters and why we may do detentions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I am the king of consensual encounters. And a consensual encounter is nothing more than me hopping out of my cruiser and talking to somebody. That's it. Whether you're standing on a street corner, whether you're at a park, whether you're sitting on a porch, on a swing, whatever. Even if you're sitting in a car in a parking lot, like, I am the king of getting out of my cruiser and talking to members of the community because I want to know what's going on in the community. And my community members know this, just people when they can't, because they'll chuck the dudes to the bounce, right? But when I'm conducting a consensual encounter, I am not detaining you, right? Like, you are free to leave. You could walk away. You could not talk to me, whatever. But there are times where, say you're walking down the street and you jaywalk in front of me, and I hop out of the car and I go, "Hey man, how you doing today? Blah, blah, blah." Just trying to get information from you. At that point, I observed you break the law. You're not free to leave yet until I finish my investigation. If I cite you, till I get your information, run a warrant check, blah, blah, blah. And the reason we do these things is to ultimately make the community a better place, a safer place, right? Like, when I get out of the car and I talk to these community members, I want to make sure that you're not here doing something crazy. I want to make sure you're not here trying to kidnap a kid or pick up a young lady, and sex traffic her or kill somebody, right? Like, I want to know who's in the community, just like you want to know who's in the community and who's serving your community.
Exactly. And so I think what's important, and one of the reasons I brought this up, I just watched a very disturbing video the other day. Somebody sent it to me. It looked like there were some officers at a high school, and it looked like a riot was going on. Now, I don't know what was going on, and obviously they were there for a reason. But there was a lot of there was a lot of students around these officers filming all in the officer's face, saying, "I got you on camera. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that." And that situation just turned bad from the very beginning. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this often happens on consensual or detentions. There have been times where I'll get out of my car and I'm just talking to somebody and I'll have somebody walk up behind me and start filming for no reason. And I get it. They're in their mind, they're trying to say, "Oh, you know what? I want to make sure this officer doesn't do anything wrong, and that, this guy's rights aren't being violated." But at the end of the day, the way I see this is that I want everybody to go home safely. I want myself to go home safely. I want the person that I'm contacting to go home safely. I want the person with the video camera to go home safely. But when you insert yourself in a situation, all you're doing is you're making this a means for this situation to go bad. And going back to social media, one of the unfortunate things that's going on right now is I think people are no longer pulling cameras out to make sure a person's rights aren't being violated. What they are doing is they're pulling cameras out because they want this to be the next video that goes viral.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what's scary
100%.
is, they will say they will say things like, oh, I want to make sure that you're being treated right, or this officer's not going to do this to you, and I got it all on film. Yeah, if that was going back to intentions, if that was your true intent that, hey, I want to make sure that this person's rights are not being violated by the officer, okay, I can kind of understand it. Is it the means that you should go about doing it? No, that's not the means you should go about doing it unless you're a few feet away, not compromising that officer's safety. However, the true means of why a lot of people are taking their cameras out and getting in officers' face and getting up on them is because, unfortunately, they want that to be the next video that goes viral. Because as we all know, in the day that we live in, if you have a viral video, now all of a sudden, now that gives you a little bit of social media fame, which if you ask me is worth nothing. And so that's what sucks is that, and that's why I brought up these consensual encounters versus detentions, is because in a detention, if I'm detaining somebody for a lawful reason, if you get into my face and start getting your camera all in my face, then now what you're doing is you're obstructing my investigation, and now you're in violation of the law. There's nothing wrong with pulling the camera out from the side. If you're 10 feet away and you say, hey, I need to record this to make sure this person's rights aren't being violated, but do not get up in an officer's face. Don't get up in his personal space, because again, I want to go home. I've talked to you guys about my family. I've talked to you guys about my kids before. I want to go home to them, and I want that person I'm dealing with to go home to their family. You know what I mean?
100%.
Imagine if you get up in an officer's grill and this officer is dealing with somebody who also has a family. And let's just say for whatever reason, something happened that made that officer feel unsafe, or somebody else. And now either the officer lost his life, or the person that the officer was dealing with lost his life because you wanted to mosey around and get involved and put your camera in the officer's face. And now something went from 0 to 100. And so, that's my biggest plea to the community is, if you are going to pull a camera out to record an officer's actions, check your intent of why you're doing it. Check your intent and make sure that you're not doing this that's going to compromise anybody's safety. Because if your intent is to make this go viral, then you need a gut check. You need to check your gut and your heart, because that ain't right.
But yeah, I agree with you 100%. The frustrating thing with me is you could almost immediately identify who's recording for what reason, right? Like, how many times have you been on a traffic stop or you've been out of your car talking to somebody pulls their phone out, and instead of just recording, they start yelling and narrating this encounter, and they're like creating something that didn't happen, right? Like, I lied to you not. I have been out of my cruiser talking to kids that I mentor. Like, these kids have my personal cell phone number. Their parents have my personal cell phone number. I've paid their rent. I've filled up their refrigerators. I've helped them get honor roll or make honor roll at school and whatnot. I'm having a normal conversation with a kid, and a community member will pull over, hop out the car, pull their phone out and be like, oh, here we go. You don't have to talk to him. Like, you don't have to talk to him. Know your rights. And I'm just like, chill. Like, this is like my little brother. Like why are you creating this narrative that doesn't exist? Like, if you truly cared about this kid's rights, or if you truly cared about the rights of everyone else and holding police officers accountable, you'd sit there in silence holding your phone, because actions speak much louder than words. And you don't have to narrate what's going on, because I'll do it for you, right? Like, if I'm doing something crazy, you're going to pick it up on your camera, right? Like, your camera not only is picking up video, but it's picking up audio, right?
Exactly.
And I've also been on traffic stops where someone has just done something crazy, and there's an older woman who's filming off in the distance, not saying anything. We'll clear the traffic stop, and I'll walk up to the woman, or walk up to the person recording, and go, hey, I seen you recording. I just want to introduce myself. My name's Officer AJ. I patrol this area. I've been down here for a while. If you ever need anything, feel free to call me. Here's my number, blah, blah, blah. And it completely changes their mind. Like, wow, you know what? I've seen a lot of things on TV. This is why I was recording. I just kind of want to make sure that I'm holding you accountable and that community member as well. And it's just boom, you can tell the difference between who's doing what for what reason.
Exactly. And it is scary because, I think nowadays if something is going on, like for example, me and my family, we were at the bowling alley a few weeks ago, and this dude got into it with his I think it was his roommate because his roommate was drunk and they took his keys away, and so the roommate obviously was mad because he got his keys taken away, so they started getting in a fight. Dude got knocked out, bro, like snoring knocked out. And so I'm over there off duty. I'm like, man, I don't want to get involved in this. Like, I don't want to. But, anyways, the dude's on the floor. I go over to him, see if he needs an ambulance and all this other stuff. But you have people that are more apt to pull their phones out and record than actually check on a person's well-being and health.
Bruh.
Because it's more popular to have that next viral video, even though somebody's dying right in front of them. And it's the same thing when we talk about our profession, is like, you're more concerned about getting the next viral. And it's funny. And I just thought about this. I actually think people would like to see officers lose their mind and go off on somebody so they can get the next viral video, even though they would be the main ones in the street saying, I can't stand police brutality. So on one end, they want the police brutality to occur because for them, they're going to get some good footage that's going to help their video go viral. But on the other end, they're the same ones promoting, oh, I don't want police brutality and all this other nonsense because it's the popular thing to do. So it just mind blows me because I'm like, man, and it seems like what I'm saying is common sense, but it's not. And that's what's the frustrating part is, like, if you really truly believed in trying to stop what's going on with, officers abusing their power and things like that, there are other methods in doing that, like what you and I are doing, like getting involved in your community, like going to Citizens Academy, like talking to the chief of police without having to get your phone out and be all vocal and then put it on social media and hope it goes viral.
Yeah. There's too many people who worry about receiving instant fame, and it's so funny you said that because I think it was either last week or the week before. Someone sent me a meme, and the meme said, "I pray that if I ever get hurt or seriously injured, that the people around me are quicker to help than to pull out their phone and record."
Wow.
And it's like, how many times have you showed up to a scene and everyone's standing out there with their phone out and like someone's bleeding out and you're like, why are you recording this? Like, why don't you grab a towel or like take your shirt off and apply pressure on the wound? And then when we show up, like, we're trying to help out and they're like trying to tell us what to do, right? Like, no, why are you doing that? You killing him. And it's just like, stop worrying about like your instant fame or like you trying to increase like your platform for you to have a voice, and start worrying about being a better person.
Exactly.
And then watch those things come naturally, right? Like the better of a person you are, like these things will naturally happen. Like good people will gravitate towards you because they see who you are as a person, and your circle will just become like that much more positive, and like good things will just automatically happen to you instead of you automatically worrying about like, well, I'm gonna pull my phone out because this is crazy. Man. Well, I ain't gonna believe this. Like XX Testanciano, or however you say his name, rest in peace, just got killed. But like, they didn't even like open the car door to check on him. Like, they were recording him through the window. Like,
I know.
Oh man, look, this celebrity just got killed. And it's just like, man, like you could have saved his life, but you too busy worrying about getting some views on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Like, come on, man. Like, what you look like. And something else that I find super interesting, since we're on this topic. Yeah, so 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went to a dialogue here at the Ohio State University, and just annually, the dialogue that we have at this event is amazing. They set it up perfect. What they do is they have 3 or 4 community members, they have a mediator, and then they have 3 to 4 police officers at each table. And there's probably 20 to 30 tables in this huge auditorium at the university. And I try to go every year. But, I'm there, I'm sitting at this table, and it's like me, a chief of, or not a chief, but like a lieutenant, some higher ranking official at a suburb department, a couple other police officers and some community members. And we're just talking about things, we're just like going back and forth, tit for tat type of deal. The chief or the higher ranking official said something, and the way he said it in his delivery was so powerful, like it almost took my breath away. And I just sat there silent for like 5 to 10 minutes. But what he said was, he goes, something that I want everyone to understand is sometimes we're placed in situations where we don't have any, we have no, I don't want to mess it up. He basically said sometimes we're placed in situations where we can't help but look like the bad guys. And everybody's kind of looking at him like, well, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, sometimes we're made to look like we're racist because someone called the police who is racist. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And I immediately thought like, man, I've been in these situations before. Like, I've had someone call the police on 3 young teenage male blacks entering this business at this intersection, and they have guns. They're in the store. They're getting ready to rob the place. So we're like, oh my goodness. So we're in the car. We're flying lights and sirens. I'm grabbing my shotgun when I'm getting out of the car. We run in this place. We're pointing guns at these kids because a known caller said that these 3 young male blacks were in here getting ready to rob this place, and their eyes are all big. Their hands are up. They're shaking. We grab them. We pat them down. We kind of separate them. We go back in the business, and we're like, hey, did they have guns? Were they getting ready to rob you guys? And the guy's like, no, like they come in here every single day to get water, and we give them candy on their way home from school. And
wow.
The people inside the store are looking at us like disgusted.
Oh,
people are driving by because we have these kids like leaned up against the cruisers, just like, look at these racist cops. And it's just like, we didn't do that. Like
somebody called.
We responded accordingly to the dispatch, right? Like, we can't help that the person who called this in was racist, and there's no way for us to know that, right? Until we get there and investigate the run. But unfortunately, there's like certain runs, like if you call saying that someone's robbing a store, we come in with the big guns,
exactly,
right? Because we're making sure the community is safe first and foremost, and then we'll work backwards from there, right? And it's just like the way that chief said that left the entire table silent. Like, even the community members were just like, I never thought of that. Like, police officers are sometimes a direct reflection of the community in which they serve. Like, if they serve a racist community, then they're going to look racist because they're responding to the calls that the community are calling in.
Man, that's happened to me so many times too, where somebody will call in on a suspicious subject call, and I'll get there and I'm like, shoot, there's nothing suspicious. That's happened to me. Somebody called the cops on me and said I look suspicious. And so you're so right on that, man. And again, like, that's what I want to hone in on this point is that, I think we live, and it goes back to our point at the very beginning of this podcast when we talked about depression and social media and why people are so depressed and why they're contemplating suicide, is because we're finding our validation in social media. We're finding our validation in how many likes I get. We're finding our validation in how many people follow me. We're finding our validation on how many people can repost myself. You know what I mean? Those are the things that we're finding validation in. And so because we find our validation in those, we will do whatever it takes to obtain that. So that way I can get that validation I need, even if that means I have to insert myself into a police situation where they're trying to serve their community and do what they got to do. Even if it means this dude is bleeding out in the front seat of his car and I'm just going to get the video footage first because that's more important. Right. And that's what's so scary. And so when going back to the topic of detentions and consensual stops, an officer is doing a consensual encounter, 1, because he's trying to get to know his community, 2, he, and that could mean he could be trying to get to know a good community member. He's trying to get to know a bad community member. There's no certain, way we decide on who we're going to do a consensual encounter on. And then a detention, if we are doing a detention, when we do that, that means we have a lawful reason to stop somebody. And if we're doing an investigation, that person is not free to leave. And as we're doing our investigation, if you're the bystander, just keep doing what you got to do, keep pushing, do whatever you got to do, but don't insert yourself into that detention, because now you're going to find yourself detained, and then you're going to start saying to me, oh, you can't detain me, you can't detain me, I didn't do anything. Well, in all actuality, we can. And so I know we didn't get too deep into detentions and consensual encounters, but that kind of segued into what we were talking about. And one thing I want to bring up really briefly, because I don't know what we're doing on time right now. We're at 50 minutes. All right, perfect. There's something that's going on in California right now, and I don't know if this is a national movement, but I know what's going on for certain in California. But they're trying to change the standard for reasonable force to necessary force. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
So in California right now, they're trying to make it a law where, and we've talked about this before on podcasts, but case law basically says that an officer can use reasonable force to effect an arrest, overcome resistance, or prevent an escape. And that's based on Graham versus Connor, which is case law. You can look it up. The reason that helps officers so much is because one of the key phrases in that says we can use reasonable force to do one of those three things. Reasonable, the way they determine if it was reasonable or not is that they put, when it goes to court and there's a jury, they look at that situation that the officer was in without adding all these different things into it. They look at it and they take that officer's experience, his training, where he comes from, all that into a totality, and they say if somebody from the same background, the same training, the same experience, if they were put in that same situation, would they make the same judgment call in that situation? And if they determine it was reasonable, that's how an officer usually gets off. Well, now they're trying to change that standard in California to necessary force, which I think if we do that, if that law passes, that's going to be terrible for law enforcement, and I think it's going to be terrible for the community. And here's why. I have two reasons why. It's going to be terrible for the police officer because now that officer, we already feel a little bit afraid now to make some certain decisions when it comes to using force on somebody because we're afraid either we're going to get quarterbacked, B, we're going to get prosecuted, or C, kill somebody. So it's going to make us more hesitant to now use force on somebody that actually needs force used against them because we're thinking about all the secondary things, the secondary problems that are going to arise from that.
Yeah.
The second issue with that is, from the community standpoint, is when you have officers that are less apt to be proactive, when you have officers that are less apt to be to use force on somebody, that now puts you as a civilian in more danger from this guy that's causing problems in your city because an officer doesn't want to take a certain level of force against them to stop that threat. And so by changing the use of force from reasonable force to necessary force, I think could be very, very detrimental if it passes. And I know where this is coming from. On face value, it sounds nice. It says actually in the verbiage of behind this law or behind this language, it says that it will make it a lot harder for officers to get off if they use deadly force or any type of force on somebody. That's what it says. It's going to make it harder for us to get off, which
terrifying.
It's terrifying, man, because I have a family, I have kids, you know what I mean? So, do I think that officers that are out of the scope of their duties, do I think they should be prosecuted and go to jail? 100%. And I think right now the courts do a really good way of determining whether or not these people are guilty or not. And think about this too. Usually the people deciding whether or not an officer's actions were right or not are civilians because it's a jury. It's a jury trial. So you're making these unrealistic standards for officers without knowing what it actually means to be in an officer's shoes. And I can only say that because I'm an officer now. Now, me being in that situation and having to use force on people, having to potentially use deadly force on somebody, man, if you're going to hold me to a standard of was it necessary or not, I mean, how do you judge whether or not it was necessary? And that's that's what's going to come from this.
Something that I've noticed is a majority, at least from what I've seen, a majority of the individuals who are in charge of implementing and creating these like new policies and procedures, when they do ride-alongs, that's a big if they do ride-alongs with police officers, they tend to do them in areas where there's not a lot of action, right? Like they tend to do those. And even if they do, say they go to the inner city or somewhere else, or with a department that is pretty active, they're proactive, they're out here getting it, they tend to not go with an officer who's proactive in that area, which is a huge red flag because now they're creating policies based off of what they've seen, and they're already preconceived like notion of law enforcement. They're combining those and going, okay, well, officers can't do this. It's just like there are times like where I have to body slam someone as hard as I can because I don't want them to get back up and fight me because they are twice my size. There are times where I grab a female and she starts turning around and she's slapping me in the face with her rings and I have to pick her up and I have to slam her. Like you can't get around it. There are parts of this job that are ugly. It doesn't look good on film. It doesn't sound good. We have to do things that we just don't want to do, but we have to do them to keep the community safe. And the more that the community or the more that policymakers tie our hands, the more dangerous it gets for both parties.
Everybody.
Because what happens is you have police officers who are now hesitant, right? They're hesitant to pull their gun. They're hesitant to use force, which results in a lot more police officers being injured and 3 police officers being killed in 2 weeks and 163 police officers being killed on line of duty last year as a total. Those numbers will spike because of that. And then on the other hand, you have community members who are and commit more violent crimes because they feel they could get away with it. And it's just like, it's a lose-lose now.
Mm-hmm. I put it, and I pose this question to members of our community. If there was a person on your son's campus with a gun and your kids are on that campus and this guy is walking around the campus with a assault rifle slung around his neck, right, and somebody went to his house and found a note that said, I'm going to kill as many people at my school today as possible, and you're on a ride along as a civilian with this officer on this day, and you ride up to the school with this officer runs and finds a threat. He sees the guy with the gun slung around his neck, and you saw the letter that was written that said, hey, I'm going to try to kill as many people as I can, and you know your kids are at this same high school campus that this gunman is at. How would you feel if that officer said, I'm not going to raise my gun because I don't know if it's necessary yet?
Yeah. Or how about this? We'll add this to it. Since I just had a run like this last week, I'm not going to raise my gun because I'm not sure if what he has is a real gun.
Leave it at that.
It looks real. It looks real. Are you going to put your kid's life on the line?
Exactly.
I don't think you are. We chased down a kid. I'm not going to say his age, but he was a kid. And the entire time he's reaching in his waistband. And he finally pulls out a gun, throws it on the ground, and you hear the metal hit the ground. Tink, 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 tink. He runs around the corner. He stops. We tackle the kid. We throw him in handcuffs. We go back. We grab this gun, and we're like, this is a real gun. Why are you running around with this gun? And we're looking at it. It says Walther on it, which is a manufacturer of a firearm, and it's a pellet gun. It's metal. The top rack's back. It's all black. And it's like, these are the things that we have to face. Like, we have an ugly job. Like, our job is so rapidly developing, and like we have so many things that we have to think about. Like, we don't need our hands tied more. Like, what we need support from our communities. We need support from the lawmakers. We need support from the policymakers and changers. But at the same time, we do need to be held accountable.
Exactly.
And I feel like the accountability is already there, right? Like, if a police officer does something crazy, hammering, make an example out of him or her, right? But don't say that now you can't use force, because you're making it more dangerous for both parties.
Man, I took a gun off of somebody about 1.5 years ago, and literally it was a metal gun, had a wooden handle, everything like that. It was a pellet gun. However, you can interchange the barrel and you can interchange the mag to make it a real gun. Yeah,
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I took pictures of the gun. I'm going to send it to you guys so we can like edit like a clip. I mean,
let's do it.
It'll blow your mind.
Let's do it. We can do it. We can. How many of you guys think this is a real gun? How many of you guys think this? We could do it we'll do like a voting.
Absolutely. And my message to not only the listeners, but more specifically for the parents out there is, I don't have kids. I'm not blessed enough to have my own children, but I can only imagine how much you love your own children and how you are going to view your kids. But something I want you to understand is, like, your kids are not perfect. Your kids are not. They're going to make mistakes. They're kids, right? A lot of times the mistakes that your children are making are going to be innocent mistakes, but you have to hold them accountable. When we pulled that BB gun off of that kid, we had community members yelling at us, telling us, why are you chasing him? Why is your gun out? That's a BB gun. And it's just like, we don't know. And I'm like showing these community members, like, do you think this is a real gun? Or like, well, we know it's a BB gun. It's like, well, you know that, but like, we don't know that.
Exactly.
So my message to the listeners is like, hold yourself and hold your children accountable. I'm telling you right now, when I have a kid, there is no way that they're going to have anything that resembles a real firearm. They're not. There's no way they're going to be out here playing with something that looks like a real gun, because I know what can happen to them, and you should do the same.
Yep.
Just for the safety of everyone.
Yep, I agree.
That kid could have pulled that BB gun out being goofy, And a community member, a gangbanger could have seen that and pulled a gun out and killed him.
Yep, exactly.
Just because he felt threatened.
Yep. Man, powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff, man. So before we move into the fair or foul, this podcast is being brought to you by the one and only Breaking Barriers United and my boy Oh No It's a Popo. We appreciate your guys' support and everything that you guys are doing. August 1st, that's the day of the It's Needed conference. Get your tickets. Be there, be square. Speaking of that, we actually redid our website. So if you go to breakingbarriersunited.com, the website is completely brand new. It's actually legit. There's a countdown ticker on there for the podcast, or not the podcast, the conference. So take a look at it. It's legit. And I want to give a personal shout out to lawenforcementsocial.com. Again, that's lawenforcementsocial.com. They are the ones that actually redid our website, and they are actually going to be having some their employees, or actually the owners, speaking at our conference this year, talking about bringing on the topic of social media, bringing social media to your police department or your community agency, whatever it may be. So shout out to them. They did a phenomenal job. If you like our website, that being said, man, I got a fair or foul, man. This is actually kind of funny, man. My son, man, my son is 5 years old. Dude he's smart, man. Like Grayson is smart as ever. That kid, man, he from day one, my man, like he potty trained himself, taught himself to ride a bike. Like my man he's just really smart. So last night we're talking, me and him, we were coming back from my basketball game, and he and I are just talking about like race. And he's like, so Dad, like what does it mean to be like Filipino? And I'm like, because he's a quarter Filipino, and I'm like, well, that means like your Lolo, which is his grandfather, is from the Philippines. And so we're going through this whole conversation. So he's like, so what does black mean? And I'm like, dang, like he can give me questions, bro, they're getting kind of hard to answer. I'm like, well, like black means like my skin color is black, like, you know what I mean? So then I'm trying to give him I know, right? Black don't crack. So I'm trying to give him the politically correct answer, like, well, I'm African American. It means like some of our families from Africa, but yet we live in America. So this goes on and on. So he's like, so you're all black? And I'm like, yeah, like your Peepaw, it's his grandfather. Your Peepaw is black, and Nani is black, it's his grandmother. And then he was like, well, so mommy, her dad is Filipino, and then grandma is and I told him grandma's Hispanic. He was like, Daddy, you look half black though. I'm like, this fool right here, like, I'm like, son, like, you don't even know what half black is. I kid you not, bro. He was like, Daddy, you look half black.
Fair.
Nah.
Grayson, fair.
Oh, man, bro, I was crying, bro. I don't even know if I told Kimberly about that, bro, but he was like, you look half black. So I'm calling foul. My own son think I'm half black.
Fair. You call it like you see it.
Oh, bro, man, little man, I'm like, dog, what are you watching? Like how you figure this stuff out, bro? So
it's the craziest things ever. Like kids be telling on their parents too by accident.
Oh,
like,
all the time, bro. No feel that. Me and Kimberly got to watch what we say, bro, because they'll mess around and say something around some people that we didn't need to get out. Like,
Yeah, they be in church.
Like, we don't like y'all. Daddy said he don't like y'all.
Yeah, chill.
Yeah, Daddy said we don't like
that life. Chitty bang bang. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, for real. Daddy said he don't like coming to your guys' house.
He said y'all stink.
Yeah, Daddy said you guys stink. So so for all you guys out there that got kids, man, make sure you guys put a filter on your kids' mouth, because they definitely ain't got no filter, man. So any parting words? I know, right?
Yeah. Parting words. Let me think. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's always refreshing to hop on here where it's just me and you, and we can just kind of like bounce different things back and forth. But, something that just really hit me with this podcast is holding yourself accountable. We live in a very broken world, and it seems like it's just continuing to become more and more broken. So there comes a time where you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, like, what are you doing to make this world a better place, if anything? And if you can't figure out what you're doing, then you need to find something you're passionate about that's positive, and you need to start doing that. Because if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And I'm sick and tired of people hitting me up and telling me what's wrong with this world and expecting me to fix it.
Yeah, they can do something about it.
My response from this point on is, all right, what are you doing? What's your plan to fix it? How can I help you fix the issue that you see, right? I'm busy fixing the own issues I'm passionate about and that I see. I can help you out, but I need you to come up with a game plan, and let's do this.
We're going to prove to you it's a lot easier than you think, and we're going to prove it to you through our suicide prevention campaign that we're getting ready to launch. I'm telling you guys now, mark my words, this campaign is going to go viral, and I'm going to prove to you that when you see a problem, you can go out and be your solution. So trust me. We are going to prove to you. You identify a problem, we're going to prove to you how you can go and be your solution. So the last thing, my parting words, man, get a pen and paper out, because I'm about to drop some philosophical knowledge on all of our listeners and viewers right now. Like, I'm about to drop the biggest nugget that you guys are going to get this week, and you guys will be able to take away this for the rest of your life. So the nugget I'm going to drop right now: get your tickets to the conference.
Snag them ASAP.
Get your tickets.
Hey, listen. Everything you are hearing on this podcast, everything that you've heard on this podcast, whether it's from Ryan, myself, a special guest, something we've posted online, multiply that by 10. That's what's going to be at the conference, and it's going to be in person. You're going to have opportunities to talk to us, pick our brains, see why we're doing what we're doing, how we're doing what we're doing. You need these tickets. Trust me when I say this.
Get your tickets. They are going fast, y'all. They're going fast, and there is a cap. So we're not going to leave it open. So there is a cap, and once we cap out, unfortunately, you won't be able to make it. So with that being said, I got nothing else. AJ, it's a pleasure, my brother. Always good talking to you. Until next time, and next week is, hey, man, he is risen, bro. He is risen. Jesus is risen, man. We celebrating Easter.
Speaking of him being risen, before we close out, we got to close out with a prayer.
Yes, do it. I'm going to let you handle it tonight, AJ.
Absolutely. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today just extremely thankful that we have this platform, thankful that you put an issue in front of us and then made us realize that we need to find a solution, thankful that we had the opportunity to find that solution and implement it in our daily lives. I just ask that you continue to guide our footsteps and our hands in the right direction, and guide our minds. Watch over this conference. May it be packed. May we sell out. And just everything else, Lord, I ask that you watch over every police officer and every community member as well. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And remember, listeners and viewers, this is the season. Easter is next week. I want you, if you don't know what Easter is, Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior, he died for our sins, and those sins that we spoke about earlier in this podcast. We talked about, putting other people's stuff on a pedestal, and we act like we could do no wrong. Well, Jesus died for every single one of our sins, even the rapist, even the murderer, even the people that are doing no right. He died for their sins as well. It's up to them whether or not they want to accept him as Lord and ask for forgiveness, but he died for your sins at home right now. So if you feel like you've done something wrong, if you feel like you are being the worst person ever, if you feel like no one loves you, if you feel like you can't go on, Jesus loves you. He died for your sins. And on Sunday, we will celebrate the resurrection, because when he rose up out of that grave, he proved everybody wrong. He proved everybody that he was God, he is God, and he's still living. And that's what gives every single one of us hope. So if you guys are ever wondering where our hope is found, your hope is not found in Onosapopo. Your hope is not found in Ryan Tillman. Your hope is not found in Breaking Barriers United. Your hope is found in Jesus Christ, the one and only. So take care, guys. God bless. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.